because one of the consequences of the cheapening of the transfer of information is that you can now add cheaply a lot of information about the people involved in transactions. One of the consequences of this is that relations which were previously impersonal, which, because they took place at distance, people did not know each other, they could not form any personally based social relationship. The instruments of money that conducted this exchange were themselves impersonal. I mean, you have if you drop a note or a coin on the floor, anybody can use it. But I believe that one of the chief features of the revolution that we're living through at the moment is that it becomes possible to personalize long-distance relations to a degree that was not common before. And I don't know, I think some of I mean, there's been a tremendous explosion in this kind of re-socialization of impersonal exchanges just in the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, the rise of Google as a search engine, the development of new social networking sites, microblogging through Twitter and its related operations, social bookmarking, which is even more recent and is coming out now. I mean, I don't know if any of you use StumbleUpon or software like it, but it's based on what for me has become one of the iconic indicators of the changes that we're living through and will have to adapt to in future. I mean, in history, knowledge had to be classified by experts. These experts would tell you where you could find what you wanted to know. And these classifications were assembled in catalogs which had folders or cards or whatever, and every piece of information had its own unique place in this hierarchy. But the invention of tagging liberates us from this notion that information has to have only one place in a system of classification. If you can simply bookmark anything that you come across on the internet as being significant to you, and you enter into, through softwares like StumbleUpon, into relations with friends and colleagues and others whose tastes and interests you can come to rely upon. It means that what is happening here is that the people are, as it were, now in charge of the classification process. Each of us contributes. I mean, if you tag a photograph on Flickr or any piece of information on Facebook or whatever, you're essentially putting your footprint into this and making it possible for individuals, with the help of machines, to personalize the searches that you're making on the internet. I mean, the fundamental question about the internet is there's so much stuff out there. How the hell do you get anything out reliably? I mean, Google made a tremendous step forward, but it's still the case that what you're getting from Google is the result of millions of searches by people you don't know. What I believe these new technologies are opening up, and they're opening them up, I can see from the lack of comprehension on your faces that you haven't really thought about this at all yet, which I think confirms my view that that we're actually in the middle of a social revolution whose technical and political consequences most people are unaware of because they're living in the past. And I guess what I'm trying to argue, and I can't establish it very much more at this stage, is that I imagine that processes that connect each of us to large impersonal society will rapidly be made more personal, more concrete, more social, in ways that we can actually navigate, knowing more fully who it is that we're engaging with in trying to make a society on the internet. And this links to one of my most significant questions, which is, we basically, in the 20th century, lived in societies that were dedicated to impersonal institutions. We lived in states that were impersonal. Our methods of knowledge, science, were impersonal. The economy that we lived in was dominated by mass production and consumption of commodities, capitalist markets. And so in such a society, it's very difficult for individuals to feel that they have a relationship to the process, an active relationship to the processes that matter. The consequence, I think, of feeling small and insignificant and alienated in such a society was that people abandoned largely any practical method for linking themselves meaningfully to the large forces that were transforming society. If you did try to you had to join a party or some large organization that had a program and a constitution and a method, and maybe with the help of such a party you would have a meaningful relationship to the changes taking place in society. But party politics has been losing its edge for decades now. So the way that I express this is that we live in a world that is huge and remote, and we are ourselves small and insignificant. And the issue is, how can we make a meaningful connection between the two? I believe that this existential problem is, how can I insert myself meaningfully into a society like this, is something that bugs us all, whether we acknowledge it or not. And I think that there are methods that are well tried for achieving such a meaningful link, bridging the gap, if you like, between little me and that vastness out there. In order to do it, you have to scale the world down. You have to find ways of reducing the scale of the world. And you also have to find ways of scaling yourself up. So, one of the classical ways that we have done this in modernity is through novels and movies. A novel takes history or a movie and reduces it in scale to the frame of a paperback book or a screen that you're looking at in the dark. And especially if it's in the dark, you get a chance to enter this world, this fictional world, on terms that may be perhaps more emotionally and intellectually inflated than you would allow yourself under other circumstances. In other words, you can read War and Peace and say, who should I be? Am I Pierre or Andre? Would I really fall for Natasha? Is she worth it? All this stuff. The thing is that the fiction allows us to enter imaginatively into a scaled down version, to scale ourselves up and scale the world down. There are lots of other ways of doing it. The scientists and the engineers do it, of course, by reducing the complexity of nature to theorems. There are people like Stephen Hawking who say that his ambition in life is to invent a theory of everything, and when he has, or you're Einstein, and come on, you can write it on the board, E equals mc squared. Oh, well, that's it then, that's nice. If you believe that you've got the world in an equation, then you have definitely scaled it down and scaled yourself up. So this business of scaling yourself down, scaling yourself up is not is something that goes on all the time, but that some people, especially governing elites and intellectual elites, are more adept at than others.